Hey, everybody. Appreciate you all taking time today to hear a little bit more about our advisory offering. I'm Tony Esposito, Managing Director and Head of Business Development here at Consero. Have been with the company since 2020 and have been an operator at fintech and tech-enabled service companies since 2012. As our Managing Director over business development, I oversee channel partner relationships, including a lot of our private equity relationships, which we'll be sharing a little bit more about. I'll also let my colleagues introduce themselves, starting with Tim.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Tim Neville, Managing Director of Advisory Services. I support our services as it relates to FP&A and stabilization, which includes cleanup activities, accounting cleanup activities. Tom?
Thanks, Tim. My name is Tom Pierce. I am the other Managing Director of Advisory Services, and I oversee CFO Advisory Services, specifically working hand in glove with Tim in our FP&A, accounting stabilization, other professions.
Thanks, guys. Well, we've got a full agenda here. I think that you'll all enjoy what we have prepared today. I will just jump right into it by going into our Consero overview. The business was founded in 2006 by Bill Klein and Scott Tynes with the goal of really building a modern alternative to an in-house finance function. In his prior roles, Scott had a lot of experience leading due diligence processes for middle market and lower middle market private equity companies and acquisitions. And what he really saw was that companies try to recreate the wheel for finance and accounting functions. And his thought was, hey, how do I productize a solution that companies can leverage and not have to do all of the work on their own, and leverage a solution like Consero? So 18 years later, here we are, businesses backed by private equity ourselves. So BV Investment Partners, we've got about 1,500 employees worldwide, over 300 clients, backed by more than 115 different private equity firms. And we support those portfolio companies of those private equity firms with various offerings, which we'll get more into shortly. The end markets which we focus on are software, business services, and then healthcare service sectors. Many of those companies are private equity or venture capital backed when we work with them, but they can also just be more bootstrapped, founder-funded companies. In addition to portfolio companies of investment managers, we also can work with investment management firms directly, so private equity investors, hedge funds, RIAs, and then we have a division dedicated specifically to nonprofits. So that's a little bit on Consero. Just a reminder as well, if you have any questions as we're going through, pop them into the chat. We'll make an effort to answer them in real time. But if we don't get to them in real time, we'll try to make time for them at the end. Now, fast forwarding here to our sponsors that we work with. So one of our major go-to-market channels, as I alluded to, is actually working directly with private equity firms. And the reason being is because we do a really good job serving their portfolio companies that tend to be high growth, highly acquisitive. M&A is a big part of that growth strategy that these companies have when they engage with Consero. And our real goal, and really from day one, was to become part of that investor and executive playbook. I can't tell you how many CFOs there are, maybe some of you on this call, who have worked with us in the past. You move on to your new company, and then we get the call from you again. And we love getting that call because it means we did something right the first time around. And the same goes for private equity firms. So each one of these firms that you see here, they have at least one portfolio company working with Consero, but some of them have several. And we usually get the phone call when maybe there's been an underinvestment in the finance function, accounting that doesn't follow GAAP. There could be personnel issues somewhere that we could step in with the team to alleviate those challenges. So helping really executives get out of the weeds of the finance and accounting so they could shift their focus more towards strategy and less so on the day-to-day finance and accounting operation. Moving on here, we've got our offerings. So advisory services is really the focus of today, but right, our goal is just to be the first call for executives and investors when there's a need. So we cover the full office of the CFO, everything from, as I said, advisory all the way to a comprehensive FaaS solution. So to double click into these a little bit, advisory services, it starts at the top with, right, fractional CFO and FP&A services, and then we can go all the way down to project-based technical accounting cleanup. And we've got a bunch of advisors. Tom and Tim will really speak more to that, but we could bring in, right, flexible expertise that's really tailored to a unique client situation. I'll give you a quick case study just to bring some life to it. As I mentioned, we work with a lot of private equity firms. There was a private equity firm recently where we had actually been engaged for our full FaaS solution, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute here. But we were doing their accounting work, and they actually hired a full-time CFO who we were reporting into as Consero, and they were really happy with how things were going. But then just kind of out of the blue, the CFO gave their 2 weeks notice, had found a different job. And this actually happens quite a bit. We got the phone call the next day. So after that CFO gave their notice, investors got on the phone with us, said, hey, we've got an immediate need. We want to put in a fractional CFO. We're thinking about hiring a full-time permanent CFO, but there's a possibility the temporary solution could become the permanent solution, because we actually just hired a new CEO who has decided that he doesn't really need a full-time CFO, and he thinks he can reinvest a lot of those dollars that we're going to be saving, not paying a full-time CFO salary, into growth. So that's exactly where, right, Consero came in. So by the end of the week, we had a fractional CFO in place. It's been a great engagement. I think we're going on 7 or 8 months so far. So it really seems like the temporary solution has become a more permanent solution. Now, in addition to advisory services, I'll get to FaaS in a moment, but in between here in the middle column, you've got Flex Finance. So Flex Finance, that's really where we're just bringing a scalable back office team to the table that can either supplement an existing team or take on the entire month-end close. So goal being, let's say you are a CFO and you want to be freed up from doing, the transactional finance and accounting tasks. Consero can bring in a team of offshore controller level down accountant resources that can handle all the day-to-day accounting. So all of our accountants offshore are, right, chartered and degreed, trained in US GAAP. And then we also, in addition, provide oversight from a North America-based finance director or VP of finance. So you get a good combination of onshore and offshore with our Flex Finance offering. So another quick case study, we were engaged recently by a private equity firm. They said that the portfolio company who we ultimately engaged with, they were just kind of short on bandwidth. The internal team, it was one finance director and a controller. They had a good infrastructure in place. They'd actually just implemented NetSuite, but the transaction volumes were ramping up to a point where that team was just spread too thin, and they had audit coming up, which they had to worry about. So they said, hey, look, Consero, can you bring in some resources that could give us a little bit of extra leverage rather than us having to go and execute a search and find a staff level accountant, which, right, in New York City, where that company is based, hard to find, right? The accounting talent war is still real. And also higher, right, bar tab for somebody in New York City than working with somebody in Bangalore. So that's what we brought to the table. We brought a great cost savings and time to value as well for this particular portfolio company. And now that internal team has a lot more bandwidth to go and execute on the audit and some of the higher priority initiatives. So last but not least, I'll hit on this one pretty quickly. So finance as a service, this is our flagship solution. People, process, and technology optimization all in one. I'll just get right into the case study. So we actually were brought in by another private equity sponsor. They had just finalized an investment in a company. It was a founder-owned business. They had really underinvested in finance and accounting historically. They had a bookkeeper who was doing an okay job, hybrid, let's call it accounting, if we're being kind, on QuickBooks. And the private equity firms, they usually have a different expectation for accounting outputs, and they were looking for a real step function transformation as far as the reporting goes. So GAAP accounting, management reporting, right, add back tracking, which Tim could speak more to. So they engaged with Consero, jettisoned the bookkeeper, brought us in as a full alternative. So brought in a team, VP of finance level down, so a fully outsourced Consero managed team. And then we also in the same span of just 30 days, optimized process and then also implemented new systems. So that's a distinction with our finance as a service offering, is we're doing a real full finance transformation. It's a lift and shift of systems. It's really centered around Sage Intacct, but we have a full, best in class technology stack that we implement for companies, which is customized based on existing CRM systems, operational systems, and that's something we can get into if you have a company that you wanted to talk more about. But technology, managed services, all from Consero, that's what you're getting with finance as a service. And right, the overarching goal is just to free up the CFOs and CEOs we work with to focus on more of the strategic priorities that are going to help grow the business. So with all that said, let me turn it over to Tom Pierce, and he could talk a little bit more about some of the scenarios where our clients are calling Consero and prospects are calling Consero as well.
Great. Hey, well, thanks, Tony, and appreciate everybody being here today. The points outlined here really represent the trigger points of where a client may have problems or needs, and where we are well positioned to help them and support their success ultimately. So when do our clients call us? I'm going to imagine the bullet points in this page are familiar to everyone here today. Company exit process preparedness, liquidity constraints, cash crunch, equity capital raise, poor visibility to product unit level economics. Maybe you receive an unsolicited offer to be acquired, and the list goes on. But the overarching reality here is that these needs are foundational in their importance, episodic or event-based, and ultimately require substantial expertise and attention. And this highlights a key point that I want to highlight here, is that not only do we bring expertise in all of these areas, as well as a deep bench of experience, but also the ability to scale with your needs. We are here for clients when you need us, where you need us, expertise and execution on demand. And the nature of the model is we can flex with your needs, beyond some of these examples. One of the most tangible ones is, of course, an acquisition, especially pre-close and post-close as well. So, all right, if you go on to the next page. Great, there it is. Okay, so let's dive into what is advisory services. It's really, in a nutshell, flexible expertise available to meet the evolving challenges of a growing business today across the three primary service areas outlined above: financial planning, analysis, and reporting, accounting stabilization, also known as cleanup, and CFO advisory services under FP&A, annual budget and rolling forecast, three-statement model, so vitally important, but so time intensive to create it properly and maintain it. KPIs for SaaS, healthcare, investment managers, not for profit. The list goes on. Variance analysis, accounting stabilization, cash to accrual conversion, general ledger cleanup for audit readiness and due diligence, revenue recognition and required restatements, purchase price accounting, and on. And finally, CFO advisory services, funding readiness and support, debt financing or refinancing, exit process preparation and readiness, treasury support, cash management, strategic planning, and the rest. So not only to bring the expertise in all of these areas, as well as a deep bench of experience, but we're here for new and existing clients when you need us, where you need us, as you need us. These can be interim, these can be fractional, these can be fully outsourced, transaction support, or even just project-based. Finally, the business model has been built to deploy flexible solutions to meet the unique needs of most any client need. Video catch up here. All right, and diving into this next page, this is a great case study of a successful CFO advisory services engagement. It was a middle market healthcare company. They had just raised $20 million revenue business. They had received their first round of institutional funding, and they engaged with Consero to provide CFO services 2 months afterwards. They'd only had 2 finance and accounting personnel in-house, and all other activities were outsourced to a local CPA firm. So what do we do for them? Well, the client did contract with us and brought in an on-demand CFO to serve their needs. So on a fractional basis, we provided finance and accounting leadership to their existing staff. We led them through the development of the appropriate visibility to financial results and also where the business is heading operationally and financially. And we collaborated with their staff and leadership to develop not only the type of metrics their sponsor was looking for, but also represented the company in board meetings with a new sponsor. Flash forward 4 months, we got the client their very first audit. Previously, their statements had only been reviewed by a smaller CPA firm. With the new financial sponsor, they stepped up to a larger CPA firm, and the first audit we got them through with flying colors. We also secured a material debt refinancing through Bridge Bank, as well as underwriting and funding through an additional credit line with Silicon Valley Bank. And this partnership worked so well, this hand in glove with their leadership. We broadened and widened our relationship with Consero, ultimately deciding all of their finance and accounting needs to our finance as a service platform. So, great example. Tim, I'll hand the mic over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So what I wanted to do here is just give you a good kind of example or client profile of where stabilization or cleanup project would be kind of a good opportunity. So if you're a CFO or a private equity firm and you're shopping to add a company to add to your capabilities and acquire a company, you're looking through the due diligence and you're seeing that, all right, this company has really good growth and it could be a really good acquisition here, but they're really not accounting or they're on a cash basis and they're not on an accrual basis. What Consero can do in this situation is do the cleanup project associated with that once you acquire that company. We can make sure that we're going in, cleaning it up, and providing GAAP accounting for that, and moving everything from cash to accrual, and making sure that you have an audit-ready process at the end of the year. We can also make sure that because of that, that usually happens with transactions like this, is that some debt is put onto this transaction as well too. So we're making sure that you are covenant ready as well. So we will come in there and kind of get into the details, move everything from a cash to accrual, perform that kind of detailed contract review, make sure that you're 606 compliant. And you would think in this day and age, most companies are 606 compliant, but they are not. So we're still seeing opportunities to clean that up. In addition to that, we'll make sure that the transactional accounting is done from a purchase price perspective there as well. And if you have any kind of above GAAP reporting requirements for pro forma, we can also load history in there for you as well, so you can kind of see good trended business reporting. And then also we'll make sure that you actually have those documents ready for audit of accounting process and procedures that you can hand to your auditors at the end of the year for that. And that also includes a good revenue recognition policy. So all of those things would be included in a cleanup project. The next example, if we go to the next slide here, is kind of an FP&A opportunity. So if you're a company and if you're a CFO that you're just doing too much in the weeds FP&A and you're growing, you can't warrant having a full-time FP&A resource, but you still want to be able to provide those KPIs and analysis to your board and to your investors. Consero has the ability to provide you with that capability and get you out of the weeds and more on the analysis of this. So we can put together annual plans and quarterly forecasts associated with your business, build that financial model that you need and that you can review on a monthly basis. And we'll provide you with comprehensive BVA, or budget versus actual results in that, and we can help you reforecast your business on a quarterly basis, and also put together what are key performance indicators specifically for your business. So we'll start out with a standard model, but then we'll customize it specifically to your business as to what you need to see within that. So I think that this is like a good, kind of mid-size and growing business opportunity here, and where we can add value and save money, and where you really need a full-time FP&A resource. Okay. I think this gives a good examples of where we can add value.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Well, hey, thanks everybody for joining us. We've got some time here for questions. I just wanted to mention that we do have a follow-up piece that we're sending to everybody, 2024 CFO survey. We last did this in 2022. We partnered with a research organization who put this together, and I think we surveyed over 150 different CFOs just to try to understand some of the challenges and opportunities that there are for investor-backed company CFOs. So we'll be sending that to everybody who attended today as a follow-up. And if you did want to chat more offline here, myself, Tom, Tim, we're all more than happy to connect. Just to keep them focused, feel free to funnel all those inquiries through me, and I would be happy to set up a call on behalf of either Tim or Tom. But with that, we do have a couple of questions that came in, and this first one I'm going to take a stab at, and it says, how early in the investment process should we consider engaging with Consero? So yeah, it's a great question, and this is one that we get often, especially when we're having preliminary conversations with private equity firms. I would say the sooner the better, right? Consero likes to come in, I would even say pre-close. So once a letter of intent is signed, that's a great time to engage with Consero, and we can set up a game plan as far as how we can go forward and solution something for immediately post-close, so that you're ready to go with a 100-day plan that includes finance function transformation within the first 100 days of your investment. So the sooner the better, I would say, as far as a time comes to engage. I have a question actually for Tom, and my question, it's about your prior life. I know before you joined Consero, you've been a CFO at a number of different software companies in a full-time capacity. And I think there was one particular company where you actually received an inbound acquisition offer. I was hoping you could pontificate on that a bit, and also just what's the importance of just kind of being ready for if one of those inbound acquisition offers come in, and how can Consero help with that?
Great question. And especially in the instance of a PE-backed business, they're about driving efficiency, about juicing returns. And you don't have a bunch of excess capacity lying around. And at the end of the day here, you went and polled a lot of our private equity colleagues, friends, sponsors, customers. They would say, are you contemplating an exit process for any, some, or all of your portfolio companies? They'd say all, because that is the nature of their business. And I was the CFO of actually a Great Hill Black Dragon-backed company. And of course, we were in the business of being invested in. We had a board comprised of venture and PE firms. And because we had done the spade work, and we did have to hire extra staff, very expensive to do so, to put together that exit process preparedness. We weren't looking to be acquired, but lo and behold, Excel KKR came and put an offer in front of us. And because of this preparation process, and they had to close in 8.5 weeks to make their earnings announcement for their public company, Paymentus, they just debuted several weeks earlier in the New York Stock Exchange. We were able to close in less than 7 weeks, literally from pre-term sheet to signed agreement. And that was data room preparation. We'd done our own Q of E to understand where the weak points were. Data room index. We'd had our ARR file. It was also auditable as well, as you could drill down on it. We've been capturing churn drivers as well. People will understand, okay, of this revenue stream that I'm buying, when you lose customers, why? We've begun with the end in mind, and we're getting a lot of inbound interest, and frankly, it's resonating with a lot of our PE sponsors and companies as well. So, great question, Tom.
Excellent. And we did have one final question with the time we have here for Tim that came in. And this is coming from a CEO. He says, just got instated at a private equity backed business. We're getting the basics now as far as financials go, but we need to add a little bit more rigor to our reporting process. What's the onboarding process as far as engaging with Consero to support with board reporting, management reporting, and the like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the one thing that we try to do, and something that everybody knows, is that we should of course have that basis, which is your GAAP financials. But on top of that, we want to make sure that you're having good management reporting. That includes add backs associated with any types of transaction or one-time events. We'll make sure that we're reporting on that for you, and you're able to kind of see and have line of sight into that, because those are the things that you want to be able to show and that we can also help prepare you on the board side and make sure that you have that available to you. So we go above that GAAP reporting and make sure that from a management reporting and investor reporting standpoint, we're including that into your financials as well too, and you're able to see that, and makes it a lot more streamlined for you to then do your board reports. Hopefully that helps.
Great.
Yep.